Hey, welcome back. I am Heather Hutchison, and we are here to talk about mental illness and raising children and teens with mental illness and a lot of the stuff that goes along with that. And I just really wanted to get on here and give you guys a few practical tips and some things to think about for any period of time that you're raising a child who may be struggling with some mental health problems, or now especially during this pandemic when we're locked down and things are a little bit different. And for a lot of our kids, it's made things a little harder than it usually has been. So I'm in my car because I am locked down with my 4 kids, and I had to run out and do a couple of errands, and it is quiet here. So I knew that I could take advantage of the quiet and talk to you guys. My steering wheel is right here. Apologize about that, but holding it in my hand, I knew that I would be bouncing it around. So I'm propping it up on my dash here. So anyway, I've just been thinking a lot lately about raising challenging children who have mental illness struggles, whether it's anxiety or depression or self-harm or mood disorder, ADHD, OCD, a lot of times autism can present some of these kinds of things, all of the above, all of those things. A lot of our children have struggled with those particular issues. And during this time of uncertainty and during the pandemic, for some of our kids, it has made things even harder. And the fact that a lot of us are home with our kids even more than usual, and we're spending lots of extra time with them, can make us feel a few of those things. Maybe you already struggle with some mental health issues, and if you didn't before, you might be feeling some anxiety or a little bit of depression or some confusion or some uncertainty as well that's manifesting in your own mind, in your own life, in your own body. So I wanted to address that and give you some things to think about. First of all, I just want to right off the bat, for anybody who may be joining us for the first time, or even if you're not, that when we're talking about a mental illness or a mental health struggle, we're talking about an issue in your brain, a sickness, a disorder, whatever you'd like to call it, but something that affects the way a person thinks, the way a person feels. That can be not just emotion, but also physically, and often the way a person behaves. It can alter behavior. And what happens with us as parents or as guardians or as someone who loves a person who has mental illness is the behaviors that we see that are being brought on or triggered or altered by this mental illness or this mental health disorder can be really challenging. And if you've never struggled with anything regarding mental health personally, it can be really hard, especially if the behavior is challenging, to find yourself in a place of understanding or of compassion or empathy or kindness or patience. And let me tell you, I am the first one to admit that when my son, whose name is Samuel, who's now 18 and doing really well, when he was younger, I had a lot of years where I was very, very frustrated, very angry, felt very alone, was not getting the help for him that I was so desperately seeking. Felt like a lot of people didn't believe us because not everybody saw the level of destructive behavior that we were experiencing on a daily basis, and really felt invalidated. And that is a topic for another time. I would love to dive into that. But I have learned as he's gotten older, and we've both done a lot of work, and we've seen lots of different clinicians and therapists, and I've researched and he's matured, that my responses to him have so much more power than I ever dreamed. You know, I know when the behavior is challenging, with him, there was a lot of aggressive behavior, there was a lot of violent behavior, there was destructive behavior, and then at times there was a lot of incredibly depressed symptoms. But at times the behavior was so overwhelming that it from the outside, it would seem very natural for me to respond with frustration or anger or trying to be over the top discipline. And, you know, the outside world often thinks that we can just discipline this behavior out of them. But that's where the difference comes, right? Is that we are dealing with people who, we're not dealing with a behavioral issue primarily. We're dealing with a mental health issue that is manifesting often as behaviors that are super, super challenging. So what can you do as a parent, right? You often feel really at the end of your rope. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to turn. You're getting lots of different messages. Whether when you have young kids, you're being told just spank them or, put them in timeout. You have older kids, you're like, give them chores, take things away, ground. I'm not discounting some of those things, okay? But that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is you and me and what we can do to change the atmosphere and the energy in our home. Let's say that you have a child or a teenager who is experiencing some intense depression. That is really hard. And that kind of behavior can show up in a lot of different ways. They might be articulating to you that they feel incredibly sad. They may be having some suicidal ideations, which can be terrifying as a parent. They may be sleeping a ton. They may be have lost interest in everything that they formerly had interest in. They're kind of moping around the house. They're irritable. They're complaining. They're not interested in engaging with you. Any and all of those things, okay? And it looks different on each person. And it looks different at different ages. What I want to encourage you not to do is to discount the way that they're feeling. If you've never experienced long-term depression or, clinical deep depression, it's really kind of hard to wrap your brain around. We've all experienced sadness and probably even like a few days here and there where we felt depressed. But if you've not experienced that chronic just depression, which I hadn't until a few years ago, where I experienced it for the first time for about a year, it's really hard to kind of understand that this is real. And even when your brain is telling you that, this is maybe irrational, you're overreacting, things aren't that bad, there's often not much you can do about it as a person to pull yourself up out of those feelings and out of that behavior. So as a parent, as a guardian, as someone who loves your child desperately, but maybe is frustrated or alternatively scared, I would really encourage you not to discount their feelings. If they're telling you they feel really sad or they feel like, they don't want to live anymore, one of the worst things that we can do is to retort to that with, I don't understand why you feel that way. Or you have everything that you need. We love you. We have a great house. All of your needs are met. You have friends who love you, siblings who love you, family who loves you. You're a beautiful person. You're discounting it, right? So someone who has depression, they already feel bad about having depression, and that energy that's inside their brain, that chemical reaction that's going on, that rut that they're in, is going to grab hold of those negative comments from someone who they respect, love, appreciate, desperately need, and add that to the feeling that they already have and continue with those tapes. Okay, so telling them, either you don't believe them, or it's not that bad, or someone else has it worse, or these are all the reasons why they shouldn't feel that way, is going to do the opposite of what you think it's going to do. It is not productive at all. I would really encourage you not to say that. If you have already done that, I would encourage you to go back and apologize and to explain, I didn't understand. I'm learning. I want to support you. I'm here for you. Please forgive me for, saying that I didn't believe you or that you don't have any reason to feel this way. Please, I'd like to talk. The second thing that I think you should not do is force them to do things that they're not feeling like doing. And by that, I mean, I had to let go of a lot of my expectations, learning to operate within Samuel's moods. And they may not feel like having dinner with the family. And that is not because they don't love you, they don't care about you, they're not interested. It oftentimes takes a ton of emotional energy to get themselves up and come to the table and interact with you guys, okay? They need an interaction, but trying to maintain those things that look like societal norms in your family during a time of deep depression can be a real challenge and can make it harder on them. And you forcing them to do it again, it can be out of great good intention and out of love and compassion, but may actually exacerbate some of the symptoms. So instead of putting requirements on them like that, what I would encourage you to say is, I would love to have you come sit at the table with us and have dinner tonight. We would love that if you're feeling up to it. Give them a feeling of kind of empowerment, as though they have an option. They're invited. They're not loved any less if they choose not to come into the dining room or into the kitchen to eat with you, but that it's available and that you are holding space for them within your family, within your unit, for them to be able to participate. Okay. Now, it would be a good thing for you to force them to do some things force is not a word that I really love, but encourage them greatly to do things like showering. We have had that struggle before. I know that when I felt depressed that some of those things were difficult to do, but I do know that it does help you feel better. If you can encourage your child, hey, I know you're tired. I would love it if you could get a shower because I think it would make you feel better. Don't tell them get a shower because you smell. All right, that's not going to help. It's just going to shame them. Guilt and shame is not helpful at this time. I know it can be hard to get in there. Hey, I bought you this special bath gel, or I got you this cool bath bomb, or this great lotion you can put on afterwards, or maybe let's do a face mask together, whether you have a daughter or a son, or whatever you can think of to do to just kind of prod them towards that, to encourage them. So that they can hop in the shower, and oftentimes it does help them feel a little bit better. But just encourage, don't require those kinds of things. Okay. This is not, you're dealing with a sick person. You're not dealing with someone who is defying you because they're being malicious. And that's where you've got to start to change that mindset. They are not being depressed at you, meaning that they are not punishing you by, being depressed. And this behavior is not to punish you. They're struggling. Okay. So that compassion, that mind shift, the way that you word things is really powerful. I also want to encourage you to listen. If you can just find a moment here or there to say, hey, I know you're not feeling great. I'm so sorry. I wish there was something I could do to make you feel better. You want to talk about it? And if they talk, try to bite your tongue. This can be a really hard thing to do as a parent because sometimes the stuff that they're talking about feels either petty or it feels illogical. I assure you that for them it is not. So jumping in and saying, well, that's not true because so-and-so never said that, and you know that they care about you, they're going to shut down. Allow them to talk. Find something you can grab onto and say that, that really sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. I really hate that you feel like this. Do you want to sit with me and watch a movie? I'm here for you. I love you. Thank you for sharing your heart with me. That's a huge thing. You thank them for talking to you. Okay. Sometimes just talking gets those things out. Another thing not to do, please don't ever do this with whatever mental health issue you're struggling with. And I probably have done it in the past, is to say something like, I miss the old Kelly, I miss the old Brian, whatever. Try not to say that because that just shames them again. They already feel like they're not being themselves. They want to do differently. They want to behave differently, and they're struggling. And so for you to say what you think is really compassionate and might encourage them and snap them out of it actually is often going to have the opposite effect. So saying, I really miss it when we did such and such is only going to heap guilt and shame onto them. Don't say those things. That's something you guys can talk about when they're feeling better at another time. What I would encourage you to do is find those places where you can point to that are good. And I don't care how little or pitiful that you think it is, encourage your child. So find something to say, hey, I noticed you got a shower today. That's pretty awesome. And keep it moving. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation. Or if they're walking through their room and, hey, I really like the shirt that you picked out. It looks great on you. Or, hey, I noticed that, you don't even have to say I noticed, but your makeup looks great today. Or, I love you. I would love for you to come watch this show with me. Or I found this silly video on TikTok. Come watch it with me. And you're not trying to pull them out of the depression. You are engaging with them, right? So this engagement is what helps dig into that depression and start to chip away at it. That continual love, consistency, letting them know that you're there for them. Just be really careful with your words. I know you're scared. I know that their depression or their feelings of self-worth that is not logical at the moment, or their talk of wanting to not be here, or self-harm can be terrifying as a parent, but you've got to respond and act as the adult in these situations, which can be really, really hard. Okay. It really can, but it's so powerful. So you might be terrified. It might be making you very, very sad to watch your child struggling. But if you can be that anchor of hope and you can find something to say daily that offers a moment of encouragement, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be powerful. It doesn't have to be profound. Just let them know you're there. You're aware of it. You don't have to not talk about mental illness, you guys. We talk about it in my family all the time. And it's hard. Sometimes, oh my gosh, it's hard when he tells me some of the things that he's thinking and feeling. And I just want to snap back and be like, but you're my child. None of that is real. This is all a lie. Because that's true. But what's also true is that's their reality at the moment, okay? So instead, what I say is, Samuel, I'm so sorry that you feel this way, and when he talks a little more, I'm like, hey, how's it going on your meds? Are you taking your meds the way that you're supposed to be taking them? Do you think that maybe we need to call the doctor? Do you want me to schedule a counseling appointment for you? If all those things, they're pushing back on you, don't push unless you need to do something with medicine for sure. We'll talk about that another time. You can say, hey, would you like to have your friend come over this weekend to hang out for a couple of hours? Or what would you like for dinner? I'd love to make you your favorite dinner tonight. What are you feeling like? Or I picked up this ice cream for you. Find a way to encourage them, okay? Just want to encourage you to do that. And I know it's hard, especially when you're feeling sad yourself because you're empathetic and your heart's broken for your child. When it comes to some of the really challenging behavior that can be violent and has to be addressed because someone might get hurt, and that someone can be them, another child, you, another person in the house, an animal. I'm not going to talk about how to prevent the violence and the aggression in this video. We'll attack that in another video. But what I do want to encourage you to do, which I wish I had done more, and I've gotten way better at it, and it's not so much a problem anymore with my son, but was for many, many years. What I wish I hadn't done is respond in anger. And it is one of the hardest things that I've ever done, is to learn to not respond in anger and not to meet his hysteria with my own. Because when they are calling you names, or they're coming at you violently, or they have hurt someone in your family, or they've hurt you, or they've broken something, that humanity in you rises up, that want for justice, and you want nothing more than to lash back. And it's justified, but it's not helpful. So what I realized was I was afraid a lot of my son. And for me, fear often comes out in anger. And so I would yell and I would scream, and he's not listening to you. When you're escalated with him, how are you supposed to de-escalate your child? Which really, ultimately, is the result that you're after. It's not, you might want punishment in the moment, but I promise you that in a few minutes, you're gonna wish you hadn't gone after him or her with aggravation or even violence, whether it's with words or action. So you've got to find a way to get in control of your own emotion and bring it down, okay? I've walked away from him. He's followed me. I've locked myself in the bathroom. He's beaten on the door. I've forced myself to be quiet, to not respond. And then other times when he's followed me around and is railing at me, I get really quiet and emotionless when I have to respond, and I keep my comments very short. We're not doing that, or I already have said no, or that's not how you speak to me. Whatever is necessary in the moment. Oftentimes, what I learned, it took me a lot of years, but what I learned was he got really frustrated and really angry for a moment. But once he realized that I wasn't going to fight back, he usually wore himself out and left. Now, when he was younger and was throwing violent tantrums, that was a different story. Again, a different video. But I learned that if I could respond with gentleness and quietness, still being firm, it often would de-escalate the situation. So the other thing I want to encourage you to do with difficult children is, I don't know if you've thought about this, you've probably heard it, but I wanted to bring it to the forefront today. Most people on the face of the planet will either rise or fall to the expectations that you have for them. So if you are continually getting after your child for behavior, which oftentimes when you're dealing with this kind of behavior, you are, that gets processed in their brain as, I am the bad child, I'm the bad kid, I'm the screw up, whatever those words are that they're going to use on themselves. That just perpetuates more of that behavior. Find something. When there's a moment of calm in your house, go out of your way to find something to praise your child to their face about. I'm telling you, you might feel disingenuous. You might feel like a dork. You might think that I'm hokey. You might think this is stupid. It's not going to work. I'm telling you, when their brain chemical is not in balance, they often are in need of those positive things to eat away at the negative, and you are in the position to provide it, and I encourage you to do so. So, if your kid is sitting on the floor, playing nicely with the cat, and it's only been 30 seconds, jump on it. Don't make it a big dramatic deal. Make it really natural. It might not feel like it's natural to you. Do it anyway. Hey, Johnny, I love the way that you're petting the cat right now. You don't have to say anything more than that. Walk away. Or, hey, Jenny, I really liked it when you helped your sister when she needed her sippy cup up off the counter and you handed it to her. That was really helpful. Thank you for doing that for me. Or, I love how you did your hair today. Or, I think that your socks with your shoes match really great. I don't care what it is. Find something that's going to eat away at that narrative that may be going on in your family of this is the bad kid. You need it for your own self so that you can start to respond to your child differently, and they need to hear it from you so that they can put that voice inside of their head, and that voice of you are good at this, you are wanted, you are loved. And oftentimes I would say, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm glad you're my son. All of those are really awesome things. But sometimes our kids think, well, you have to love us because you're our parent. If you can pick out some specifics that don't always have to do with their appearance, especially if it's a girl. Again, we can talk about that another time, but you know what I'm talking about. But if you can pick out an attribute about them, a characteristic about them, because I guarantee you it's there. You might not have seen it for a while. Call it out. Tell them how much you appreciate it. My son was so good with my grandmother when she was in the nursing home, and then she was sicker and sicker with Alzheimer's, and it was eating away at her body and her mind, and we didn't get to visit often because she lived a state away. But even when he was young, he would sit on the side of her bed and hold her hand and just caress her. And I'm telling you guys, for a child, she looked scary, and it didn't deter him at all. He loved that woman and was compassionate with her. And I would find ways, if it came up semi-organically in a conversation, to remind him of that compassion, to remind him of the goodness that's in him, of the ability to care, to feel, to love, to demonstrate those things. We have that power for our children and for our teenagers and for our loved ones to remind them of who they are and the good. We also have the power to continue to affirm in them what may be a struggle and what may be even a lie. And both of those things have power and they have energy. So if you keep perpetuating, Johnny, you're always screwing up. Every time I ask you to do such and such, you fight back. That may be really true, but try to find something else to say. The whole thing our moms used to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Remember that with your children when you're struggling. If you can't find something nice to say at other times in the day, then try not to keep calling out all the bad behavior, because what happens is that's going to be your only interaction. You're going to go to bed. You're going to be laying there in the dark. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel like a failure. And now guess what? You're both heading down this road of negativity, and it's not helpful for anyone. So find a time, find something you can say to your child who's exhibiting challenging behavior that reminds them and reminds you of their goodness, of their humanity, of their power, of their worth. Because I'm telling you, when you are building into them with that positive stuff, those affirmations, that truth, it also is changing the way you respond to them. Because I don't know if this has happened to you, but I have been in cycles where I felt like our only interaction was negative, that went on for months and months and months. And I'm the adult, and I'm the one who didn't have the mental illness at the time, and I'm the one who had the power to speak truth into the situation and kind of break that cycle, break it up into chunks. So don't beat yourself up, guys. What's the Maya Angelou saying? And when we know better, we do better. That's the whole point of this channel, is so I can encourage you to think about things maybe in a way that you've never thought before, and you can do things differently. And if you feel like you've screwed up, apologize. That holds a lot of power. I've apologized a lot to my child. He knows that I've made mistakes, and we've had some intense conversations about that. But that's good. That builds rapport and that builds relationship. So don't be afraid to apologize and do differently today. If you can find one thing to speak into your child today that's good, if you can find one way to deal with a depressed child or, teen that reminds them that you're there and that you accept them even in their depressed state, that you don't fault them, that they're not making it up, that they're not exaggerating, all of those things we talked about, then do it, because today is a new day and tomorrow is a new day, and you have the ability. It feels like a huge responsibility, and sometimes that made me angry, but it's also a blessing because there's power in the words that we speak into our family. So I hope this encouraged you. I hope it didn't heap shame and guilt on you at all, because that's not my intention. I have been in those places it's easy to get to, of being in this cycle of feeling negative and discouraged and like a failure. And I parented that way for a lot of years. And you know what? Not only did I feel bad, but my kids felt bad too. And when I was able to change how I responded to them, not only did their behavior start to change a little bit, but I started feeling better. And the atmosphere of my home today is completely different than it used to be 10 years ago. And yours can be too. I'm not here to tell you that your issues are going to go away, that your child is going to snap out of depression, that they're going to stop talking about suicidal ideations, that they're going to come out of their mood disorder. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how to manage these illnesses to the best of our ability, to show love, to give the best care we can to them, but also to ourselves, and to make our homes the most peaceful place that we are able to in our power. So thank you again for listening. Please keep coming back. I know this was a long one today, but I just felt like I needed to get it all out. They won't always be this long, but hopefully each time you come and each time you listen, you'll take away a little nugget that you can go and implement with your family, and will change the way you think, and will give you some encouragement and some hope, because there's plenty of hope out there, guys. Don't give up. You're doing an amazing job. Keep telling yourself that, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.